Hello, and welcome to episode 17 of How to Lead from Anywhere. I hope you've really been enjoying this series. We've been giving you very, very powerful norms that you can operationalize in your area of responsibility right away. It's going to improve how well you operate, how effectively you lead, whether you lead remotely or you're in an office. It doesn't really matter. But if you want to lead from anywhere where people are disconnected, then these norms really matter because you've got to build deep social cohesion. You've got to inspire people. You've got to do all of these things. We're going through all of it and making it really simple on you. So today, episode 17, we're going to cover vulnerability, different aspects of vulnerability. People think being vulnerable is a weakness. It's actually a strength. So let's just dig right into this.
Yeah. This one is one that people struggle with because our society is so judgmental and
Oh,
critical. And
totally.
so people don't want to take the mask off. They don't want to be vulnerable. It's often seen as a weakness. And so they don't want to do it. And I love that we're going to give some tips on how to do this better and how important it is to actually let your guard down sometimes. Yeah, you might get hurt, but at the same time, it's really a great thing for you to be vulnerable as a leader. It really makes you more human.
Yeah, it does. Vulnerability is your strength. So you've got to learn it's okay to take your armor off.
Yeah,
And the first image is really very important because I think it sets the tone of the entire uh,
absolutely.
conversation we're going to have here with you today.
Yeah.
So, vulnerability. There are a lot of different aspects of being vulnerable. Being able to forgive, you've got to be a little vulnerable to do that. You've got to understand why it matters. Apologizing could take some real vulnerability, being understanding when things go wrong, being totally yourself and authentic. So, we'll dig into these. These are all very important aspects of vulnerability. So, apology. There's a whole book written on this. It's called On Apology. It's an entire book, analyzes all the great apologies done over time. It's worth a read. I read it years ago. But there are good and bad forms of apology.
Yeah.
And most people practice the bad form because they're not vulnerable enough to do it right. But let's talk about it, Tara. What do you think?
Yeah. There's also differences in the way that people receive apologies too. I'll have to go look up the book, but the guy that did the five love languages,
Yeah.
Gary Chapman, he also did a book on apology. And so, just how people have different love languages, things that speak love to them, people also have different apology languages. And so, when you are apologizing to somebody, sometimes people need to hear those words, I'm sorry. And then there are other people that you can say you're sorry till you're blue in the face. They don't care about your sorries. They want to see your actions. They want to see what you do next. And so it's so important to understand your people and understand, being vulnerable and taking ownership of that apology and apologizing, being sincere. I think across the board, everybody
Yeah.
needs some sincerity in it. You can't just say, oh, well, it really wasn't my fault. I'm sorry. Just kind of flippant. People pick up on that vibe. And when you don't really mean it, they can tell. And that's why people can say, I'm sorry. They can try to do different things to apologize. But if your heart is not really in it, if there's that heart head disconnect, this is one of those things where it's a vibe and people can pick up on it and they will absolutely say, they don't accept your apology, or they'll constantly treat you differently because they don't feel like you've really apologized to them. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
one is a huge one.
This is huge. People do it very poorly. And when
Yeah.
it's done wrong, it actually damages the relationship even further. Right. So you're apologizing because you've made a misstep or done something that you shouldn't have done. And people hesitate to do this. And the longer they wait, the less meaningful the apology is. The
Yeah.
sooner you go over and apologize, the better. But you've got to come back. You've got to think about it. You've got to sincerely feel that, wow, I shouldn't have done that. And then, like Terry says, people are going to read into the fact that you're being truly sincere. I'm not sure of all the different languages, but certainly you should say you're sorry and then figure out what you're going to do to make it right if you need to make it right.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
got to be genuine. That's the bottom line. It really has to come from a genuine place where you truly are sorry that you did what you did. Maybe at the time you felt like it was your only option, but you really do have to mean it.
yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't really mean to run into your car. well, that's not good enough. You got to fix my car now. Sorry.
Right.
Different levels
Yeah.
of apology and what has to be done. And
Yeah. There are consequences.
yeah,
Yep.
you got to think about it, but you should apologize. And since we're talking about work, this is about maintaining work relationships. Relationships are actually what allows work to get done. Work is an individual in most cases. And so building real social cohesion, maintaining that in the workplace, apology is a very important part of maintaining that social fabric so that it actually isn't torn and still works.
Yeah. Owning it. That's a big piece of it too.
Yeah, own it.
Yeah.
Own. That's a sincerity thing, right? Which means you got to understand you did it and believe it, and then be motivated to do the apology.
Yeah.
And then we get to, forgiveness, which is some people are never ever willing to forgive and forget, and so they just carry these grudges around. And when you forgive somebody, it allows you to let go of that and not to cloud your mind with all this negativity, but to refocus and get back to work. So forgiveness is really very much about you as an individual, right? And it's important for the other person as well, but both people benefit because you have a sender and a receiver in all cases here. And that's why we're showing you these two different images. So this is very, very important. I think
Yeah.
people are vulnerable enough oftentimes to forgive, and it's a shame, but
Yeah. It's really, there's a famous quote. I was trying to see if I could look it up really quickly. I can't
yeah,
remember if it was from Helen Keller or from somebody else. But essentially, when you're holding on in unforgiveness, you're really holding yourself hostage. And when you release it, you're really unlocking yourself. You're really letting yourself go. You're not keeping yourself behind these walls that you've built up and keeping people out. A lot of times we just kind of build those walls and don't want anybody to hurt us again. So we block out the bad, but we also block out the good when we do that. So you're not able to feel anything, the good nor the bad. So it's really important to let it go for
let it
your
go.
own sake, because unforgiveness is a poison, and it's like drinking that poison and expecting somebody else to die. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really
yeah.
it's really
That's a great
damaging
way of
you.
putting it. You're hurting
Yeah,
yourself.
it's a poison, and you're taking that poison and you're holding it so close because we don't want to let go, because we feel like that's letting the other person off the hook. Forgiveness is not letting the other person off the hook. Forgiveness is opening the door for yourself so that you can be healed and whole, and not holding that grudge and constantly having that anger or those negative emotions that come up when you hold on to unforgiveness. It's really setting yourself free from it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, this is about freeing yourself from whatever pain or other things that you're holding on to by forgiving and moving on. It's an important thing, not only at work, but in life in general. People have to learn this skill. And, it takes vulnerability to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
It really
understand
does.
another one, and this works best, as a norm, if you just say we assume positive intent. Don't be so judgmental. Don't be quick to judge. Try to understand what happened, why it happened, where the individual's coming from. And so we assume positive intent by responding with patience and understanding before judging. This can go a very long way to maintaining relationships and preventing them from fraying because people are very quick to judge. And when they're judgmental, obviously, then you're reaching out and you're accusing somebody of something that's probably and oftentimes not the case because you just haven't thought it through. So assume positive intent. This is a very important thing to do in the workplace.
Yeah. That whole idea of coming to an understanding versus assuming you know what the person intended.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a situation and you start off that conversation with an assumption and you're wrong, it is damaging to that relationship. And it kind of derails the whole conversation because you're wrong and you started off accusing this person of something. And so it's going to be very hard to get that conversation back on track.
You don't know what that person's going through, so you don't even know the background.
Right.
And you really have to understand the full context of what's going on. And that's why, this one on the left, understanding, could you explain your idea? Could you explain what happened? I'd like to understand more. Please share with me what actually happened. Instead of jumping to some conclusion and judging them and blaming them for something, you got to assume there was positive intent and they really weren't trying to do anything harmful. And
Right.
so this is just a great attitude to have in the workplace, especially if you're a leader. Wow, your people are never going to take any risk or do anything for you if you're quick to judge. And so
Right.
you've got to lead by being understanding. Nothing could be more important. Then people will feel safe around you and they'll be open with you and honest with you. And this is an important part of how you lead.
Very true.
And lastly, Tara, authenticity. Why don't you kick this off?
Yeah, you've got to bring your whole self to work, and you have to feel comfortable enough in your own skin to do that. So, as a leader, you want to make people feel comfortable by doing some of the things that we've talked about already, being vulnerable, showing who you really are in the workplace. It's okay. I promise. It really is okay
Yeah.
if you let the guard down, take the armor off, and let people see you as a real person. And that modeling that behavior as a leader, being authentic and being your whole self, it will encourage others to do the same. So now you have everybody in the organization that feels comfortable, they're safe. So, people have to feel safe in an organization. It's very important. We've talked about that many times, but in order to really be authentic, you've got to feel safe enough to do it. And so, a leader, you really want a good leader to model that behavior. It's not something that you can just say to people again, you should feel safe here, but they're going to pick up on the vibe. And if they don't feel safe, then you'll know it. You'll know it in how they respond to everything that they're asked to do. You'll sense whether or not that person feels safe in the organization. But you've got to start that first and then make sure that you're being authentic so people can bring their whole self and not hold back parts of themselves because they don't feel safe enough to do it.
Now, people do have negative parts of themselves. And Terry's talking obviously about all the good things about people.
Yeah.
Leave your negative self out of there because nobody really wants that at work. This is about not hiding who you are, parts of you. If you're into some hobbies and you don't share them, yeah, go and talk about who you really are at work. Maybe you volunteer a lot and do different things. Whatever it is, I think, you should share your whole self, but never be destructive, because if you're a destructive type personality, then we have a whole series for you to watch called People Unproductive,
Yes.
getting to in 2026. And I think you're going to love it because there are so many unproductive personality types. We're going to have a lot of fun with this, and you're going to join us and have a lot of fun too. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So we have one more here, Tara, which is the vulnerable you, hiding weaknesses or errors.
Yeah.
And people often, if they've made a misstep, they sometimes try to cover it up. People always figure it out. You've got to be honest. If you do have a weakness and you get offered some opportunity that's really not up your alley, you should say, listen, I'm not that good at that. I'm happy to try, but I just want you to know going in, I'm good at a lot of things. That's not quite it because I have a weakness in this area, whatever it might be. But you've got to be able to share exactly who you are. Like if you're a leader and you've got to do public speaking and you get up in front of the group and you're not good at it, you could say, look, I'm terrified of public speaking. So I'm up here. I'm going to do the best I can. You can help me be more comfortable. Don't be afraid to share who you really are, what you're thinking, because that's okay. People are going to see it right away anyway. They all
Yeah.
know. People don't realize they're an open book and the book is being read all the time by everybody.
Yeah. And as a leader, if you have a weak area, that's a perfect opportunity for you to have someone on your team that supports. So you want to raise people up to help you as a leader, as opposed to trying to pretend that you know it all when everybody around you knows that you don't. So you're just only fooling yourself. Nobody else is buying that. But it's a wonderful opportunity to give people a growth opportunity, right? So you get a chance to learn something from somebody else and they get a chance to grow. So it's grow, and you always grow by teaching. No matter what, you end up learning more things. So it's just a win-win for everybody when you start to sense, hey, I may not be so strong in this area. Let me work with somebody else. Let me give them an opportunity to shine. And make sure you give them the credit. When they're working with you and they're helping you get better, give them the credit for that. You'll build so much more trust in your organization by doing that.
Oh, yeah, super important. And so you want to grow as an individual, and as you overcome your vulnerabilities, you're going to grow. And that is the biggest growth opportunity you had. Carl Jung, the famous Austrian psychologist, said, what you resist persists. So if you hide
Mm,
it and resist, it's just always going to be there with you. You've got to overcome it.
yeah.
These are the big opportunities in life. So we are moving on to episode 18 next week, and we're going to talk about achievement. Achievement. Everyone needs to be needed. Everybody has achievement needs. There are a set of them. So everyone needs to be needed. It's an important episode. We're here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. I hope you could join us. So it's going to be great. See you then.
Yes. Bye for now.